My name is Dr. Emily Carter, and what happened to me during one night shift at that hospital changed the way everyone in that room saw me forever. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment your country below. I read every single one. I had just started another overnight shift, the kind most people avoid, the quiet, exhausting hours where the hospital feels half asleep, but never truly rests. I wore my light blue scrubs, hair tied back, moving silently through the dim hallway like I always did. Unnoticed, unimportant, or at least that's what they thought. That night, a group of visiting interns had arrived. Fresh faces, loud voices, the kind of confidence that comes from knowing people haven't humbled you yet. I was assigned to assist in one of the private rooms, where a critical patient had been under observation for days, a man no one expected to recover. As I walked in to check the monitors, I could already hear them whispering behind me, not even trying to hide it. Night shift again? That's where they put people who couldn't handle real responsibility, one of them said, just loud enough for me to hear. Another laughed softly, adding, "Yeah, I mean, if she was actually good, she wouldn't be stuck doing this." I didn't turn around. I didn't react. I just kept doing my job, adjusting the IV, checking vitals, documenting everything with steady hands. I had learned a long time ago that silence makes people underestimate you, and sometimes that's exactly where you want them. But they didn't stop. One of them stepped closer, glancing at my badge, smirking slightly. "Emily, right? So, what went wrong?" he asked, like it was a joke we were all supposed to laugh at. The others chuckled. I simply looked at him for a second, calm, unreadable, then went back to my work. Inside, I felt nothing new. This wasn't the first time. People see what they expect to see. A quiet woman, night shift, no explanation needed. But what they didn't know was that I chose this shift. I chose to be here in this exact room on this exact night. The patient lying on that bed wasn't just another case file to me. His monitors beeped steadily, slow, fragile, like they were holding onto something uncertain. The room dimly lit, machines casting soft shadows on the walls. Everything felt tense, like something was waiting to happen. One of the interns sighed and leaned against the wall. "Honestly, I don't even know why we're here. He hasn't moved in days," he said. "It's basically over." Another nodded. "Yeah, waste of time." I paused for just a moment, my hand resting lightly near the patient's wrist, feeling the faint rhythm of his pulse beneath my fingers. And then, something changed. It was small at first, so small I thought maybe I imagined it. A slight shift, a twitch. My eyes snapped to the monitor, then back to his face. The interns were still talking, still laughing quietly behind me, completely unaware. But I wasn't, because in that exact second, the man they had already given up on moved again. I froze for just a fraction of a second, my fingers still resting lightly against his wrist as that subtle movement echoed through my mind, louder than any alarm in the room. And before I could even say anything, one of the interns scoffed behind me. What, did he suddenly decide to wake up? Followed by a quiet laugh that quickly faded when they noticed I wasn't reacting the way they expected. Because I was no longer listening to them. I was watching him, every inch of my focus locked onto the patient's face as his eyelids trembled slightly, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it, unless you knew him well enough to recognize that even the smallest response meant something. And my heart began to beat faster, not out of panic, but anticipation, because I had been waiting for this moment longer than anyone in that room could possibly understand. "Did you see that?" one of the interns said, his tone shifting just slightly as he stepped closer, curiosity replacing arrogance. But I didn't answer him. I just leaned in a little closer to the patient, my voice calm but firm as I said softly, "Mr. Hayes, can you hear me?" And for a second, nothing happened. The machines continued their steady rhythm, the room held its breath, and then his fingers twitched again, stronger this time, deliberate, undeniable, and the laughter behind me stopped completely, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that spread across the room like a sudden drop in temperature. "Wait,
"What just happened?" someone whispered, and I could feel their eyes on me now, not with mockery, but uncertainty, as if the situation had shifted in a way they didn't understand. And slowly, almost painfully slow, the man's eyes began to open, unfocused at first, blinking against the dim light. And one of the interns immediately stepped forward, his earlier confidence now replaced with urgency. "Sir, can you hear us? Can you respond?" he asked quickly, but the patient didn't look at him, didn't react to his voice at all. Instead, his gaze moved, searching, scanning the room weakly until it landed on me. And the moment it did, something changed in his expression, something deeper than confusion, something certain. And my breath caught slightly as I leaned closer again, my voice softer now, almost personal. "Mr. Hayes, it's okay, you're safe." And that's when it happened, the moment that none of them were prepared for, the moment that would erase every laugh, every whispered comment, every assumption they had made about me, because his lips parted slightly, dry, struggling but determined, and in a weak, barely audible voice he spoke. "Emily." The room went completely still, like time itself had paused, and I could feel it, the shift, the weight of realization pressing down on everyone behind me, because they all heard it, every single one of them. And one of the interns actually stepped back, his voice low, almost disbelieving. How does he know your name?" But I didn't answer. I couldn't, not yet, because in that moment, it wasn't about them anymore. It was about him, about the man everyone else had already given up on, the man who was now looking at me like I was the only person in that room he recognized, like I was the only one who mattered. And his hand moved again, slowly, weakly, but with intention, reaching toward me, and without hesitation, I took it, steadying him gently as his breathing became uneven, the monitors reacting instantly. And suddenly the room exploded into motion, voices calling out, footsteps rushing, someone shouting for the attending physician. But even in the middle of that chaos, his grip tightened slightly around my hand, and his eyes never left mine. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a random moment of consciousness. This wasn't luck or coincidence. He had been waiting to wake up until I was there. And the truth behind that realization was something none of them were ready for. Everything after that moment moved fast, but at the same time, it felt like the entire world had slowed down just enough for everyone in that room to realize they were no longer in control of the situation, because the same patient they had dismissed, the same man they had called a lost case, was now awake. And the only name he had spoken was mine. And as the attending physician rushed in, followed by more staff, voices overlapping, questions firing one after another, I stayed exactly where I was, my hand still holding his as if letting go would somehow pull him back into that silence he had just fought his way out of. "What's happening? When did he regain consciousness?" the doctor demanded, scanning the monitors. But before anyone else could answer, the intern who had been mocking me earlier spoke, his voice unsteady now. He just woke up, and he said her name, and the room went quiet again. Not completely, but enough for the weight of that sentence to settle in. Because it didn't make sense to them. It couldn't. Not with the version of me they had created in their heads. Just a quiet night shift worker, someone invisible, someone insignificant. But reality was starting to crack through that illusion. And then the doctor turned to me directly, his expression sharp, searching. "Dr. Carter, would you like to explain?" And just like that, every pair of eyes in that room locked onto me. The same people who had laughed, who had whispered, who had reduced me to something small, now waiting, uncertain, because for the first time, they didn't know who I really was. And I took a slow breath, steadying myself, not out of nervousness, but because I knew this moment would change everything. "Mr. Hayes isn't just a patient to me," I said calmly, my voice clear despite the tension in the room. "He's been under my care long before any of you stepped into this hospital." Confusion spread instantly across their faces, and I could see it, the questions forming, the disbelief, the realization that they had missed something important, something obvious simply because they never thought to look deeper. And the doctor frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" he asked. And that's when I said the words that finally broke whatever assumptions they had left. I was the lead neurologist on his case. Silence, complete and undeniable, filled the room, because that title didn't match the image they had of me. It didn't fit the narrative they had built. And one of the interns actually shook his head slightly, like he was trying to process it. "That's not possible. You're on night shift," he said quietly, and I met his gaze for just a second, not with anger, not with satisfaction, just calm truth. "Because I chose to be," I replied. And that was the moment it all clicked for them. Every laugh, every comment, every assumption collapsing under the weight of reality, because they finally understood something they should have known from the beginning. Titles aren't always worn where people expect to see them. And the patient's grip tightened again, pulling their attention back to the bed as he looked at me with a faint, fragile awareness. And in that moment, none of their opinions mattered anymore. None of their judgments had any value, because the only thing that was real, the only thing that mattered, was that he had woken up, and he had chosen to call my name. And as the room filled with controlled urgency again, I stepped slightly forward, no longer the quiet presence in the background, but exactly who I had always been, and this time, everyone saw it.